Alright, let's do this. What's good, everybody? It's JD here, and it's time to talk about the NBA MVP race. With Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic all putting up spectacular individual seasons, the MVP race has moved beyond the stat sheet and has entered a little bit more muddy territory. Jokic's case is based on his historically good advanced stats. Embiid is closing in on his second consecutive scoring title and is probably due to win the MVP one of these years, and Giannis just continues to be his usual dominant self on both ends of the floor. I'm going to make some arguments for all three players, and then I'll give you my choice for the MVP at the end of the video. So let's start with Giannis. The argument for Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo's MVP case, though, is pretty simple, and it's more convincing. He's just the best player in the world. While the MVP race has always been divorced from the larger, quote, best player discussion, otherwise guys like LeBron or Jordan would probably have 10 apiece, but that doesn't mean that the two aren't totally unrelated. Heading into the playoffs, no player is more feared than Giannis. He's among one of the NBA's best scorers at just over 31 points a game, and was one of the most dominant defenders in the league as well. But more than that, Giannis' season fits the rough narrative that is more of a traditional MVP type season. Like Jokic in 21 and 22, Giannis has almost single-handedly hoisted the team into contention, keeping the Bucks aloft even when they've dealt with a succession of minor injury crises. Middleton has missed some time, other guys have missed some time during the season, and the Bucks offense only works because of Giannis. The 118.5 offensive rating with Antetokounmpo on the court is equivalent to the NBA's 6th best attack, while their 111.78 mark without him would be among one of the 5 worst totals in the NBA. That is value in, the most important and obvious sense, whereas Jokic and Embiid benefit from playing alongside elite offensive players like James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Jokic with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon. Only 2 other Bucks average more than 15 points per game. While Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid have all had undoubtedly great offensive seasons, Giannis holds the clear edge defensively. Jokic is merely an okay defender, and while Embiid is a very good one, Giannis is potentially the single best defender alive. He's made 5 consecutive all-defensive teams and is hurtling towards his 6th straight nod. Even as Antetokounmpo plays alongside 2 other outstanding defenders in Brook Lopez and Drew Holiday, he remains the Bucks' most dependable and important player. He's equal parts safety and cornerback, equally adapt to suffocating scores on ball as he's prowling on the weak side to erase potential lobs and open threes. It's his coiled, calculated aggression that makes Milwaukee's entire defensive scheme sing. The other 4 Bucks are able to stay out of the rotation and keep the defense structurally sound because Giannis can make every rotation for them. In this sense, Giannis is flawless in ways that Jokic and Embiid are not. Unlike Jokic, Giannis is an elite scorer and defender. Giannis scores more than 6 points per game more than Jokic, and is just simply a straight-up better defender. There's no question about it. And unlike Embiid, Giannis plays for a legitimate title contender. Sorry, a little jab at the 76ers there. The Bucks currently have the 1 seed and they're 2 games clear, and he doesn't have to split the limelight with other players like James Harden. So that's kind of my little short and sweet thought on Giannis. So let's move on to why Jokic can make his case for the MVP. While you often hear arguments and suggesting a player shouldn't be punished for having a strong supporting cast, and while I agree to that to a degree, it's a close call. It becomes difficult, if not outright disingenuous, to argue that a player whose team fails completely off the cliff while he's not on the floor isn't more valuable than a player whose team remains in the black even in his absence. It's another way of asking, who's the least disposable? Through this prism, a much clearer picture and thus a leading candidate emerges, and that's Jokic. It's always been Jokic. Jokic's on-off numbers have of course been touted ad nauseum. I'm not providing anything new here, but it's part of the problem. People are getting tired of the same evidence, the same way they get tired of the same answer. So it bears repeating that when Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets outscore opponents by 13 points per 100 possessions, and when he's not on the floor, the Nuggets are outscored by 13 points per 100 possessions. To put it another way, the Nuggets operate as the best team in the league by a mile with Jokic, and the worst team in the league also by a mile without him. You can say these numbers are more of a reflection of Denver's weak bench, but that's exactly what makes Jokic valuable within the context of the circumstances. Denver simply cannot survive without him. When we get around draft time, we love to make the comments of terms of the floor and the ceiling of a player, and Denver doesn't really have a floor without Jokic. Remove him from the equation and the Nuggets fall into a black hole. But this also qualifies him as the biggest ceiling raiser as well. Even if you take away Jokic's two best teammates, Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray, the Nuggets still qualify as a more statistically dominant team than the full-strength Bucks or Sixers as long as Jokic is playing. Again, this is where the word statistically is going to lose some people. They're all tired of the advanced numbers. Basketball isn't played on a spreadsheet, they'll say. Watch the games. To do this, I would agree. I mean, if you watch the Nuggets with and without Jokic, you don't need a spreadsheet to see, what he means to them. This is why the debate becomes so complicated. We're trying to split the finest of hairs with these three, and anytime you're trying to figure out something this complicated, the best approach to doing so, whenever possible, is to just break things down into their simplest forms. And if we do that, Jokic very well could win. And then lastly, we've got Joel Embiid. No matter who wins the award, fan bases and media pundits alike are going to disagree with the decision. And with that said, let me give you a few points on why Embiid could win this year's MVP. Sure, voter fatigue could be a factor. If that wasn't an issue, then LeBron James would have more than 4. The late Kobe Bryant, R.I.P. Kobe, would have more than 1 for sure. And even Michael Jordan, would have more MVPs in his career. So for that reason alone, it's reasonable to say that Embiid has an advantage, considering his main competition is, between Jokic and Giannis, has collectively won the last 4 MVP awards. But there isn't really even a need to throw that into the conversation when making Embiid's case. He currently leads the league in scoring, holding a narrow lead over Luka Doncic, and he also leads the league in 30-point games, and he's doing this all while holding down the paint. Putting things further into context, the big man set Sixers records by cracking the 30-point plateau in 10 consecutive contests, while also tying LeBron with 7 straight such games. Again, Jokic is setting efficiency records and breaking analytics, while Giannis continues to lay his claim as the best player in the world, but Embiid is doing things that we haven't seen for a player at his size, or any size really, ever. Make no mistake, Embiid is pretty damn efficient in his own right. The way he reaches these numbers is what really sticks out. When he has it going, he's definitely one of the most dominant players in the NBA. His bag in the post has defenders feeling like they're on an island, and when teams do decide to send the double team at him, he's definitely improved as a passer. I think he's averaging around 4 assists per game, which would be a career high for him. His free throw jumper out of the pick and roll is pretty unstoppable as well, and when you combine that with his more than respectable 3-point shot and Embiid's threat as a shooter, it forces the opponents to decide whether to step up or to chance him blowing by them, to get to the rim and possibly getting fouled. Embiid's a great free throw shooter. He gets to the line quite a bit, and I think he's hitting right around 85% of his free throws, while Giannis, converts around 64%. So, that's obviously a big part of his game and contributes to his efficiency and the amount of points that he can score. So, lastly for Embiid, there's really no one that relies on the fan base, in his city the way he does. As we all know, Philly's a tough place to play and win over, and even with Embiid, the city's pride and joy, there's been some rocky moments, but, the big man gets it, and he knows what the fans in his city want, and he delivers on a nightly basis. So, there you have it. While all 3 of these players discussed, are undoubtedly fantastic, my choice for the MVP this season, and partially because, I'm a Bucks fan, and would probably have to be Giannis. Simply he's playing on the team that has the best record in the NBA this season. He's putting up some really impressive numbers, and he's doing so, not playing many minutes. He's got triple doubles and in under 30 minutes per game several times this season, and he's not having to just play as many minutes on a nightly basis. So it really isn't a difficult debate if you don't want it to be. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the league. He plays on the best team, and for me, he's just the MVP. So there you have it, folks. There's my thoughts and opinions on the 2022-23 MVP conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below, who you think is the MVP, and that's all I got for you today. Until the next one, I'm out. Peace.